Hey everybody, how's it going? Meeting at the NFL draft is the next month. I figured this would be a great time to start my series on the top five prospects at each position for the upcoming draft. I'm gonna start with quarterbacks here. Uh, Everybody has the main debate: RG3, Andrew Luck. Who's number one? Who's number two? I got Andrew Luck as my number one. Everybody said Robert Griffin III, RG3 had a great season this year, Heisman Trophy winner, and he's getting that momentum. He's that guy. There's always that one quarterback that comes into the draft that comes in the beginning, started and builds up and just gets that momentum. And he's the guy that's did it this year. I really like Robert Griffin III a lot, but I'm gonna go with Andrew Luck here. I think RG3's ceiling is a little bit higher than his upside is definitely higher, in my opinion, than Andrew Luck. But what you see with Andrew Luck, I think that will be the worst that you'll see from him. So what he did in college, especially last year, I think that will be the worst that he'll do, and I think he'll be a guy who will have a really good career. So it's with me with Andrew Luck, it's really low risk, high reward than it is with RG3, where it's high risk, high reward. So it's one of those things. I just want to take the guy who I think is the safe bet. Even though Robert Griffin III at the end may be better, I think Andrew Luck is the guy that you could build your franchise around, along with Robert Griffin III. But Andrew Luck to me is the number one quarterback. His footwork he has great footwork, great decision maker. Doesn't have the greatest arm strength. His arm strength is above average. His accuracy is really good. He can throw on the run, which is great. He's really athletic for his size. He's about 6'4", 230. He ran 4.6 at the combine, which was great for him. And everybody's going to point out well, he didn't really have an eye-popping season like Robert Griffin III did. But when you look at Robert Griffin III and Andrew Luck didn't have a lot of outside playmakers for him. His best playmaker was the tight end Colby Fleener, who's coming out of this draft as well, and he really didn't have an outside deep threat or an outside playmaker at wide receiver to really boast his numbers up and help him out. But Andrew Luck is a guy who I think is definitely going to be a very good veteran, a very good pro throughout his whole career. Moving on to number two, Robert Griffin III, like I said, ran a 4.4 at the combine, which is great. He struggles sometimes with his decision making. Very great athlete, very good arm strength. I think he has great arm strength. That's what the underrated thing about his game is. He struggles sometimes with the intermediate routes, like a lot of quarterbacks. The system that he runs, the spread type. He throws the ball with great touch, along with Andrew Luck. They have great touch when they throw the football, and I think he's a great kid, another guy who can build a franchise around. Like I said, you don't know what you're going to get from Robert Griffin III. It could be higher risk. He could turn out to be a total bust, or he could turn out to be the next great quarterback that we have in this league. A lot of people is probably going to try to compare his season to what Cam Newton did, and I don't think it's going to be fair, because if you look at Cam Newton, well, depending on where he ends up, and he's probably going to end up in Cleveland, Washington, and whoever's going to decide to try to go after that number 2 pick from the Rams. But if you look at what Cam Newton did when he got in Carolina, he had a great stable at running back with Mike Goodson, Jonathan Stewart, and D'Angelo Williams. He had Steve Smith, who's one of the best wide receivers in the league. He had Greg Olsen and Jeremy Shockey, a great duo tandem at pass catching at the tight end position, and he had a really good solid offensive line around him. So Cam Newton it was easier for him to come into the league and succeed. So I'm going to see how Robert Griffin handles the struggles that he's going to have, because there's not a lot of the teams that I'm hearing that are going after him don't have great weapons on the outside or around him. So I want to really see how he does there. But I think him and Andrew Luck are clear-cut the best two quarterbacks in here. And then there's a drop-off at 3. I got Kirk Cousins, the quarterback out of Michigan State. I really like him a lot. I've seen tons of games on him. The both games when he played against Wisconsin, when he played against Alabama, I think he was solid in that game 2 years ago in the bowl game. I really like his game a lot. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback in my opinion at the college level. He makes great decisions with the football. Very good arm strength. He did have the outside playmakers where he could have gambled a couple of times, but he has good accuracy. I think he makes good decisions. He's sneaky athletic. He's not like Andrew Luck, how he's athletic, but I think he could run a little bit. and I think he's a very good leader. Other than Andrew Luck, I think he's the second most pro-ready quarterback. I think he's more pro-ready than Robert Griffin III. He reminds Kirk Cousins reminds me a lot of Andy Dalton when Andy Dalton came out of TCU, and a lot of people said that Andy Dalton was probably the best pro-ready quarterback, and he showed it this year getting the Cincinnati Bengals to the playoffs. So I don't think Kirk Cousins will kind of be like Andy Dalton, but he kind of reminds me of him. And depending on where he ends up, he could be fighting for a starting spot somewhere. My number 4 guy is going to be Ryan Tannehill out of Texas A&M. I like it. I really like him a lot. He took a unique path to becoming an NFL quarterback prospect. I think that his upside is is what kept him in my top 5. He's rare. He's new to the quarterback position. He just played quarterback a couple years ago, his junior year. He came into Texas A&M as a wide receiver, even though he was the backup quarterback as well. And the first 2 years he was a wide receiver, which really helped out a lot when he transferred over to the quarterback position. And he had a great quarterback teacher with him and Mike Sherman, who's coached Brett Favre in the NFL. So I really like his arm strength. Sometimes his decision making and accuracy is a little off, and he's got to work on his footwork and his mechanics. But I think that he's a guy with time. He reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers, where how Aaron Rodgers fell in the 20s, and he really benefited from sitting behind Brett Favre and not getting thrown out into the fire, where they could have worked on his mechanics, worked on everything, and now it's Aaron Rodgers that you see today. I don't think Ryan Tannehill will be Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's a guy that's really solid and with timing, and probably about 3-4 years in, I think he's a guy that will be probably starting or competing for a starting job in this league at the quarterback position. Number 5 was tricky for me. I would either go with Brandon Weeden or from Oklahoma State or Brock Osweiler. I end up going with Osweiler from Arizona State. Because I think the age factor of Brandon Weeden being 29 years old, what you see from him, I think is what you're gonna get. Upside is neither here near or there. I think it's a very little upside he can get, but his age will really, it really probably what you see from him basically, like I said, is what you're gonna get. And I like Brock Osweiler a lot. He reminds me a lot of Joe Flacco with the arm strength. He was a guy who really didn't plan on playing football. He actually had a scholarship offer to go to Gonzaga and play power forward for them. He's 6'7", about 250. Rocket arm. I think he has the best arm when it comes to arm strength in this draft class at quarterbacks. He has the best arm. His decision making and his accuracy tends to teeter a lot, which really kept him from advancing higher into the top 5. But he does remind me a lot of Joe Flacco. He could spin the ball through the wind, anything. His arm strength is just impeccable, really great. I saw him make a play where he threw the ball across his body and ended up going 60 yards downfield, and he ended up completing it. But I think that he has the mental makeup for it, and his accuracy is a little off. He's got to work on them things, and I think he's a guy that should really help out a lot. I see him probably as a round 3-4 guy, maybe 5. If he slips a little bit, like Ryan Tannehill, I see him as a second rounder, or a second or third rounder. Maybe a team goes up like him and Kirk Cousins at the same way. Him and Kirk Cousins. Maybe somebody tries to sneak up in that late one and trade up to try to get one of those 2 guys. But I think Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III are bona fide top 5. Moving on to my biggest faller, Nick Foles from Arizona. He was a guy with strong arm. And I think the injuries just took a hold of him. He was a guy that everybody was thinking about. He was going to be a top five quarterback, first round pick, and he just had a terrible season. His accuracy was bad. He didn't look healthy with his torn ACL he dealt with, from his junior year, and he just looked the team looked bad around him. He looked bad throwing the football. So we got to see. I think he's the biggest faller, but I won't be surprised if he lands on his feet somewhere and is in the NFL. My undervalued pick is Ryan Lindley from San Diego State. I really like this guy a lot. I really liked him from 2 years ago. I thought he could have made this, but he really didn't have a great season as well. And I think he's a guy who you're gonna forget about. You're gonna forget about his name, but he's a guy, and I say about 4 years from now, where you may hear him as competing for a starting job or even starting as well. he has to work on a couple things like decision making, and he doesn't have great arm strength, but those two things I think he can help out a lot, and his accuracy as well. But if he can, I think if he can get to his untapped potential, he could end up being a guy who could have really been in this top five, in my opinion. And moving on to my sleeper, Dominique Davis from East Carolina. He's a guy who had showed great accuracy this year. I think he broke two records. He broke the most completions in a row, and the most completions without throwing an interception in a strand of 214 throws, I think. And he's the guy that I think will probably be 6th, 7th round, maybe undrafted, but a guy who you can see probably doing some work and competing for a roster spot, at battling probably for that third or second job in NFL camp. But those are my top five. Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, and Osweiler. Let me know who you guys' top five is. Who you think's the sleeper? If you like Andrew Luck better, or do you like Robert Griffin III better? Let me know why. I'm interested to hear you guys' comments. I want to get this discussion going. So thanks, and I'll talk to you guys later. And be out for the lookout on Thursday for my top five running backs. All right.